Welcome to the 2015-2016 Elementary Library Media Specialist Planning Meeting. This video has been created to cover some of the information we would have covered in our back to school meeting. Due to lots of different meetings being hosted in buildings and lots of different schedules across our 11 elementary buildings, I felt it might be best to share this very important information with you via video. First and foremost, let's welcome Megan Ford, our new library media specialist at Lowndale Elementary, Kelly McClellan, who will be working as a library media specialist at Antonia Elementary, and Declan Fitzpatrick, our executive director of curriculum and instruction. He will be working with me to answer some of our budget questions and to help us make sure that we have access to the funding we need in order to support the work we're doing in our libraries. So the purpose of this video is to briefly review our goals from 2014 and 2015. We need to just start a conversation about our goals for 2015-2016. I want to outline the dates, the meeting dates for this school year. Perhaps the major focus of this video will be the administration of STAR and early literacy for this first kind of go around with what to expect, and also just an initial conversation of what we plan to do with the information we gather from those two very important assessments. So this year, we will have lots of ways we'll collaborate. We're going to continue our monthly meetings the first Friday of each month. We do have a time change at the suggestion of our staff last year. We will move from 1 to 3. We will have a rotation of the meeting locations. Even though this may pose a little bit more of a driving distance for some of you, I do think it's important for our collaboration that we get a moment to drop into each other's libraries and look at some of the practices and great things happening around the district. You'll notice on these meeting dates, the first big meeting will be September 4th at Lowndale. I put that up front to make sure we did get to visit with our new staff in our first two meetings. The March 4th meeting was scheduled, I believe, on the Google Calendar invite that I sent you, or Outlook Calendar invite. It said Lowndale. Please note that that will either be at Seckman Elementary or Simpson Elementary. There may be different things happening within our buildings that these locations may change. However, we're going to do our very best to make sure we stick to each of these time frames. On another note, sometimes there are things that are happening either within your building or maybe you're planning something that will keep you. This will be a conflict. We will do our best to make sure we share the information out with you if you are not able to attend one of our monthly meetings. I will begin working this year with Google Docs. It seems like a great platform for all of us to share information. I will be sharing documents, including meeting agendas and other pertinent information through Google Docs this year. September, we will talk a little bit about how we would like to organize and what kind of information we would like to have collaborated, or we would like to collaborate around in those Google Docs folders so that we're not flooded with too much information. I know at the end of the year last year, lots of you spent some great time organizing the folders that we had in the district drive. We need to have a conversation about if that's working for all of us or if we would like to move to this Google Docs platform so that we can access it maybe more readily. To review our goals from 2014-2015, I'd like to start off by saying thank you so much for kind of piloting the binder collection. I feel as if we all did a fantastic job of thinking about our goals and then pulling together some points of evidence that showed and supported what we were working on throughout the year. I think we really did a great job with that. I'm also very, very pleased that I feel like we're ahead of the game when it comes to collecting these artifacts. I worked earlier this month, as a matter of fact, I met with the NEE trainer specific to the library media specialist and that evaluation system that will be coming your way next year. And much of what we are doing is exactly in line with what the NIA is going to look like as far as collecting artifacts to support indicators of performance. So we're actually doing a really good job, and just getting in the habit of collecting things is putting us on the right path. During our September meeting, I would like to work towards thinking about what is essential to collect. What would we find valuable, and who is the audience for the information we are collecting? I know last year a lot of you had mentioned that some of the things may have been a little cumbersome in these gigantic binders we made. So we're going to, hopefully, if you have some time, think about that September meeting and what kind of input you'd like to give as far as what goes into those binders. As we set our goals for 2015, 2016, you may notice the language may change just a little bit. We're still looking at essentially the same kind of work that we're doing. I just thought it would be important that the language more clearly reflects what the NIA says as opposed to our own discrete goals. I feel like this will keep us from having goals in different places, looking at the NIA goals, looking at CSEP standards eventually, looking at our curriculum, looking at all of these different places. I think if we streamline our work, it's going to help all of us in having better communication. So our goals may sound a little bit different as we work next year. These are the goals. Again, next meeting we'll have more conversation about this, our first September meeting. But I want you to begin thinking about artifacts and things that we can collect to support your work in collaborating with teachers and other educators through PLC and other times. How are you promoting student reading through your library work? How are you managing your learning space and technology access? And how are you demonstrating leadership within your building? These are 4 indicators, again, come from the NIA evaluation from Library Media Specialist. You are not going to be evaluated on these goals this year. We're just merely channeling our artifacts to support these specific goals, as they may eventually become, after good discussion this year, these may eventually become the 4 goals that we work towards for evaluation in 2016, 2017. Again, we'll also talk at our September meeting about this being a digital collection for this year, and what kind of artifacts do you find useful, and who's the audience for those artifacts? What are some things that you need to maybe share with me, such as schedules and things like that? And what are some things that may need to go to larger audiences, such as the way that you promote reading in your library? So let's get down to the STAR administration for 2015-2016. We have spent a great deal of time talking about STAR administration. And so this is how it's going to roll out. I've spent a lot of time talking with Mr. Gilman and getting some recommendations from him, as well as Declan Fitzpatrick, and just trying to find a way that this does not become any kind of burden or anything too much on anyone's schedule. I want this to be pretty seamless as far as how our STAR administration works. But here are a few things I would like to discuss with you, as you may need to plan for some of these things, and also spend a little bit of time talking to your instructional leader, i.e. building principal, about how they wish for this to roll out in your individual buildings. So one of the recommendations I'd like to make, I think it would be very helpful if this is possible within your building, if the library media specialist staff were the members of the staff who actually administered the STAR test. I know in some of your buildings that's already happening, but due to the nature and what we're going to use that STAR test for, we really, really need to make sure that the STAR test is being administered with the same protocol as any other high stakes assessment. This year, the STAR test will be used as a qualifier on a multi-criteria for title services. We're going to look at this as a growth measure to a certain degree to see how instructional practices within our classroom are growing our readers and our learners. Also, at the end of the year, this will be one of the qualifiers measures of something that our district supports, which is Senate Bill 319, to see if we have any students who are not making the gains necessary to move on to the next grade. And that doesn't concern us directly. The assessment concerns us, though, in that final administration. So we do have to have a pretty tight protocol for administering the STAR test. In the past, it may not have had such a level of protocol. We have a little bit more invested in the test now. So we want to make sure that we are definitely thinking about how this is going to look. If you have a conversation with your instructional leader, and during that conversation, it is decided that you are the one administering that assessment, I would highly like to encourage teachers, the classroom teacher, to be present during the administration. There's a few reasons for this. Anytime we administer an assessment that has implications for our learners, it's always very, very important that the teacher kind of sees how that rolls out. It's also another set of hands on deck to help support the administration, and just to kind of also support the fact that this is a very, very important assessment. It's not just something that happens in the library. It does work within the instruction in the classroom. Again, please have a conversation with your principal about where this assessment will be administered, if you will be administering it, and encouraging those classroom teachers to be present so they can monitor. If you are not administering the assessment for some reason, please make sure you have conversations with your building principal as well as your teachers about the protocol for the testing due to all of those factors that I had mentioned earlier. Here are the assessment windows for the 2015. Whoa, I just realized the screen does not have, the dates are a little bit strange at the beginning. Please know, nope, I think I do have it right. I'm off my rocker right now at 6 o'clock at night, I guess. Look at the assessment windows for first quarter. Those are posted for your use. It's a rather, hopefully, wide window to be able to get everyone in. Do notice that at the very, very end of the year, we do have that additional assessment time in order to look at the Senate Bill 319 students to see who those candidates are. The STAR test is going to replace the administration of the Gates-McKinney assessment, or Gates-McKinney reading assessment beginning this fall. So it is very, very important to know that the information gleaned from the first quarter and the final assessment will be used in determining some growth data that's going to be very, very important. Just as we did last year, please note that if for some reason there's a circumstance where you need to extend the windows, please make sure that you just communicate that. It's absolutely a doable thing to be able to open those windows up just a little bit more if we have some students that need to test outside of that. We do want to try our best, though, to keep it contained so it doesn't go too far on the outskirts of that time frame. Within our assessment protocol, I'm sure you're all aware of these points, but let's go ahead and make sure we review those rather quickly. We want to make sure, again, just as we were administering any high stakes assessment that's used for screening, growth, or any other information that we may need in our district, please make sure that we are keeping in line with keeping that a quiet space with little traffic. Sometimes the way we administer these assessments, students want to finish them quickly so they can move on to some kind of game or some kind of fun activity after the assessment that they're allowed to do on the computer. You might want to think about that. We don't want to put anything into place where students are going to rush to make it through the assessments to do something quote unquote fun. Make sure we know those procedures for logging in. If students struggle with that, we don't want to have any discussions happening where it's going to interrupt students who are already logged in successful and are actually taking the test. So again, making sure it's very, very quiet for all students in the room. And we may have some of those students who do run over their time frame. So depending on how you're scheduling, make sure that you do allow for what the procedures are for students who may take a little bit more time than others. Students with IEP and special needs. This is a screening and progress monitoring tool, and it is also computer adaptive. So at this point, we do not have any plans to do accommodations with our special needs learners or other students in the building. If a teacher does see a need to monitor the STAR test in a different fashion, that's a conversation to hold with your instructional leader as well as that teacher. In the past, we haven't really ever used any kind of accommodations on this assessment. Again, that's a decision by your building principal. So here's what to expect. As you know, we do have a newly updated version of STAR. In working with Jennifer Burns, our account executive, I sat with her for a while asking her some questions as far as what we should expect. She said the time frame should be about the same. There should be 7 questions in addition to the typical administration. Those questions lend themselves to the Common Core State Standards strands, just to get a little bit more information about their skills in the Common Core strands. The diagnostic report that you receive still will have that zone of proximal development, but you will notice there will be additional information that comes from those 7 extra questions. At this time, we're not using that information as library media specialists. We're simply looking at the same information that we've used in the past, which is that zone of proximal development, which places or gives students a good idea of what their good fit book range is. Classroom teachers, however, could use the information gained within that additional 7 questions to guide some of their instruction in their classroom. As far as the new norms, which is the whole reason why we wanted to get the newest version of STAR, we don't know what's going to happen just yet. We will discuss after the students assess to see if there was a huge decrease in performance based on looking at their last assessment compared to now. We can have some conversations around what we actually did see. At this time, though, we don't have any predictors as to if it will greatly change any of the students' reading levels. Jennifer Burns was in the field of thought that she didn't expect or anticipate to see any drastic changes with the student's zone of proximal development with the new norms. STAR Early Literacy. I wanted to give you a little bit of information with respect to what this will look like. We are adding STAR Early Literacy. This is a new component for us. A couple of the buildings, a few teachers have information related to STAR Early Literacy because they've had it in their buildings before. Londell, I believe, has used STAR Early Literacy. That's the only place that I'm fully aware of that has had it. Please note that students will use headphones. After they're logged in, the computer kind of guides the work that they're going to do, but I do want to show you a few things that could be very helpful for you. Please note that we do want to have that careful protocol, just as I already mentioned with the STAR. And it's probably important for us to have a conversation about who's going to take this STAR Early Literacy test. In working with Jennifer Burns, it was explained to me that we should expect to have any student who cannot complete the practice items in STAR. Those are students who are really super good candidates to take the STAR Early Literacy. Kindergarten and first grade students, this would be a great assessment for them because it yields a lot of strong information with regards to phonemic awareness, sound symbol relationship, a lot of things that are being done on the first grade screening, in fact, will be covered on the STAR Early Literacy as well as additional skills. You would like to perhaps have conversations with your kindergarten and first grade teachers with how they're going to, how they would like to see this test administered. What I would like to ask is if you are administering that, again, talk to the building leader as well. It should happen in about the same time as STAR, especially for those first graders, because first graders may be qualified in fact, they will be qualified into the title programs. So if those students were not able to complete the STAR test and had to take the early literacy, that would be great information for a title teacher to have as well. I would like to recommend that you do not have students take more than one assessment per day. So for example, if you have all of first grade take the STAR test, it's not recommended that we also have all of first grade take the early literacy test in the same day. As far as which students take that early literacy test, again, you need to have a conversation, and this is new for all of us, but the conversation should involve the building principal and classroom teachers. It's assumed that all first grade students will take early literacy as well as the STAR. Again, that will be discussions that you're going to want to have with your building principal. So when the students begin the STAR Early Literacy, they have a video which shows some practice questions. This video helps to ensure that the student understands just basic use of the computer. And the video can actually be shown in a different session prior to the whole group experience as far as assessment. The students will be prompted if for some reason they're not working well with the computer, the student will be prompted to ask for help from an adult. And we can use iPads if you have iPad cards, and it might actually be a little bit easier for students to take this assessment via iPad. I believe there is an app for the STAR Early Literacy that you would need to download onto the iPads prior to that administration. So when they take that training video, or when they do the practice video, I'm sorry, at the beginning, this is what those screens look like if it's noticed that they're struggling with some of that work on the computer. Here are the, here's what they would say. They would see this little guy raising his hand, which indicates they need to do the same. So after the practice test is finished, the test will start automatically, and you'll see this little dude, and they're able to start. I should say the students see him. So this is what the test is going to kind of look like as far as the screens. If you're on a computer with a mouse, it looks like this. If you're on an iPad, it looks like this. If for some reason you don't have a mouse, which I can't imagine that we wouldn't be using a mouse, but if we don't have a mouse, we can use a keyboard for all of these functions. So for example, if they need to tune into something and if they're not able to hear what's being said, they can click on the listening button or touch the listening button. And again, this is what I already talked about. There are 3 different options. I would imagine most of us will be using the mouse option. There is a timer at the top of these screens, and this is more for your information just to kind of let you know. If the student kind of stalls out or doesn't answer the question in a timely manner, it does advance itself on to a next question. In case the student were to ask you, or if you want to discuss that with them, these icons are on the screen. I created a link to some training pictures. If you would like all the information I just went over, if you would like to share this information with your first graders / any of those kindergarten students who will be taking this early literacy assessment, the students, you should go to this link, and I kind of cut and pasted some pictures that would be user friendly to be able to show them the pictures to go through the assessment procedures. So when it comes to the actual information from the early literacy reports that we're going to gain, our first step is just this first time through. We're really just kind of field testing this with our first graders and those kindergarten teachers / students who are interested in doing this. We're just field testing that information with them. With that being said, we're all in this together. It may not be perfect. In fact, it might be kind of rocky, but we will have some good information just to begin with, so that as we go through this process throughout the remaining quarters, we'll hopefully get better and better at using this assessment. After we do those assessments and we come together for our first meeting, we will be looking at some of those reports and just trying to get some information about our third step, which is if these are the reports that are given to us, how can we position ourselves to maximize the information we gain from those reports? And then how do we get that information out to a broader audience, such as the classroom teachers who are not familiar with STAR early literacy, without overwhelming them at the same time? Again, when it comes to early literacy, I can't emphasize enough that this is a huge learning curve for all of us, including the classroom teachers. This first time out, we're just going to have to basically see how it goes and how that setup looks. The most important audience for this early literacy is probably going to be our first grade students, kindergarten students stepping in there kind of as, especially in the fall, this first administration will be somewhat discretionary up to the classroom teachers if they're interested in kind of seeing what this information can yield. All first grade students should be attempted that those first grade students do try STAR, however, the original STAR, so that we can see if they're ready as readers to begin the AR program. I know that a lot of us have questions with respect to STAR, AR, early literacy. I did want to show you a feature that we have until October, which is this RenU, Renaissance University. In this RenU icon, we have lots of room for professional development videos. Any questions that we may have are situated in these 2 or 3 minute videos where just certain components of the programs they give you some background information as far as reports and best use of some of those reports. So I gave you a lot of information in talking about and just reviewing together some of the information I just shared. Let's take a moment to discuss the following. First of all, it's important that we administer that STAR and STAR early literacy in a timely manner in those assessment windows. We're going to administer that STAR test 1 through 6 in our buildings. Everyone receives that STAR test. Who administers that test? It's going to be up to your building principal. Wherever it's administered is going to be based on making sure that protocol is strictly followed, because it is definitely used as a screening device this year. When we talk about the STAR early literacy, we need to think about who those candidates are for STAR early literacy. I would love to see all of first grade having this test administered, as well as any students who could not get past those initial windows or that initial practice test for STAR. Kindergarten students, have a discussion in your building as far as what those classroom teachers and your building instructional leader / principal, what they would like for that administration to look like. In administering the STAR early literacy, we should try to get that in. If we do plan with whoever those audiences are for that assessment, we want to try to do it, if at all possible, during the same assessment window time. Please consider for next year, and many of you have already started thinking about this, but do consider what you would like to do for PD this upcoming school year. We are working with the professional development coordinator, Amy Zielinski, to see how much funding we will have with respect to trainings and such. And so I'd like to carve out and just kind of have a little bit of a direction as far as what we're interested in doing as a staff, and kind of spreading some of that professional development training into small groups and clusters of where we're going. Consider the dates for events this year. I will be asking you at the next meeting to perhaps submit some dates of your big things that you have going on. If you have any literacy nights planned, if you have Dr. Seuss's birthday, if you have your book fair dates locked in, I would really like to see when those events are kind of rolling out. Just an FYI to me, and just to kind of publicize some of those things. Also, don't forget, out of district events are very important as well, such as if you're doing a Barnes & Noble night or something along that end. It would be very helpful for me to know when those events are. We are going to start thinking about that author visit, I know I said at the beginning that we would never do it again. However, that first time I think was definitely the hardest, and the feedback was overwhelming for our district. It was a very, very positive experience. And I think in the end, we're only benefiting our students by doing something like an author visit. So start kind of thinking about that, when it would work best, who's the audience, who the author is. I know at least a couple of you have come to me with some people. We're also, hopefully the next meeting will talk a little bit about your budget for next year. That will involve a conversation with Declan Fitzpatrick regarding how we'll make some decisions as far as what is being spent, where our funds are going in our buildings, and making sure that the money being allocated to each of the buildings is being used in a very, very thoughtful manner. And also we'll talk a little bit about technology purchases and what that looks like. So it'll be a great meeting. So that meeting is going to be held on September 4th at Lonedale Elementary. It will be held from 1 to 3. Hopefully you can all attend. Understood that if you can't attend, just send me an email. Please, if you're able, bring a snack to share. I know Cindy always does a great job with cookies, but it would be very, very nice for us to just have a chow down session as we meet and do some of our important stuff at our next meeting. Thank you for spending the last 31 minutes with me. I hope this helped you. Again, if there are questions along the way, please feel free to share this video with your building principal if you wish, or any of your classroom teachers. I don't know that they actually need to go through this entire video as it relates mainly to you. If you have questions, relook at some of those parts of the video. I know this may sound a little bit different than what we've done in the past. Only thing I'm seeing that might look a little different is thinking about the STAR early literacy. And please know that that is, maybe going to be a little rough this first time out with our little learners. So thank you, and I hope you are all off to a fantastic year. And I look forward to seeing all of you September 4th. Thank you.